How are you guys doing? Today is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an individual profile on Saquon Barkley, the starting running back for the New York Giants, who today is turning 24, and I believe is still just entering his prime, and he's continuing to get better and better. But he even has a resume up until now of stats and accolades that I believe just puts him in a class of his own, and why I believe he deserves his own individual profile in the first place. So if you're unfamiliar with Saquon Barkley, he stands at about 6 feet tall. He stands at about 232 pounds. He's incredibly fast. He's incredibly shifty, very strong. He has he can see plays happen as they happen. He's very intelligent, and you can just see it in his game. He has respect from even just like the best players at his position in the game. You could see even Adrian Peterson. He's one of the biggest fans of his, and Adrian Peterson is one of the greatest running backs to ever play the game. So, who is this player? I'll give you a little bit of background. So, he's originally from New York City. He would end up being one of the best prospects, where he would go and get recruited to play at Penn State. As a freshman, he got playing time his freshman year, and in his first season in Penn State, he would finish with 1,000 yards on the ground in 11 games. He also had 161 yards through the air. He had his 7 touchdowns came on the ground, and this was in 2015, where Penn State would finish 7-6. They would lose in the Tax Slayer Bowl to Georgia, but of course they were a team that had made a bowl game, and Saquon Barkley was a big part of that as a freshman, which is something very rare that you usually don't see from players, especially true freshmen. So I guess that should have really been the sign early on. This would transition into his sophomore year, where he would take a ginormous leap. He would play 14 games and a season where Penn State would finish 11-3. They would lose in the Rose Bowl to USC, but they were a team to be messed with. They would finish as the 7th best team in the nation. That would be the best ranking since Saquon Barkley was there. But in that season, Saquon Barkley would finished with 1,496 yards on the ground and 18 touchdowns, as well as 402 yards receiving through the air and 5 touchdowns. So that would be a combined almost 1,898 yards and 23 touchdowns of offense, which nearly won him the Heisman. But of course, he was still being recognized as one of the best players in football. He would be named to the first team All Big Ten for the first time. The previous year, he was named to the second team as a freshman, but of course, the sophomore, he was named there. He was named the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, the Dane Running Back of the Year. So, of course, already being recognized for being one of the best running backs in the country. And this was his second year starting at Penn State, and this was his sophomore season. So this would transition to his junior season, where he would play 13 games in a season where Penn State would end up going 11-2. They would win the Fiesta Bowl against Washington. At least he actually won the bowl this time, but they would finish 8th in the nation. That season, Saquon Barkley on the ground would put up 1,271 yards and 18 touchdowns, the same amount of rushing touchdowns. He had 632 receiving yards, which is more through the air, and he would put up 3 receiving touchdowns. He'd have 2 less total touchdowns on the season, but at least this season he would break 1,903 yards from scrimmage and not from returns. And he also had 2 kickoff return touchdowns that season too to actually make up for it. So in total. And he also had a passing touchdown in 2017, which actually gave him 1 more touchdown than the year prior, when you actually add all the touchdowns together. And he played 1 less game. So, of course, Saquon Barkley had shown that he was a decent enough prospect to be taken 2nd overall in the 2018 draft by the New York Giants. And of course, by then in his 3 years at Penn State, he was a second team All Big Ten, 2-time first team All Big Ten. He was the return specialist of the year following his senior year. He was the 2-time Amici Dane running back of the year, which is the Big Ten running back of the year. He was the Big Ten offensive player of the year 2 years in a row. He won the Paul Hornung Award, which goes to the best running back. He was named a consensus All-American in 2017, as in everybody voted for him. So this was him as a college prospect. So this would lead into 2018, where in his first season for New York, in his age 21 season, he would play all 16 games in a season where the New York Giants would finish 5-11. And this would be the only time Saquon Barkley has actually played all 16 games in a season since he's been in the NFL. Not his fault. I mean, they're due to injuries, but this would be his only full season that we can really truly measure as a full season, I think, going forward. And the second one probably, but the first one more so. In his rookie season, the only season in which he played 16 games, he would finish with 261 rushes for 1,307 yards for 11 touchdowns on the ground. Through the air, he had 91 receptions to give him 352 touches. He would have 721 receiving yards to give him 2,028 yards from scrimmage, which led the league. And he had 4 receiving touchdowns to give him 15 total touchdowns from scrimmage. As a rookie, he led the league in yards from scrimmage. And the Giants finished 5-11, so of course that naturally wasn't his fault. He was named to the All-Rookie team. Naturally, he was voted to the Pro Bowl in 2018. He was the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he was the overall Pepsi NFL Rookie of the Year. And that was his only full season in the NFL. So that would transition into his 2019 season, where he would start 13 games. Because in week 3, he had suffered a high ankle sprain, but he would still go on to play 13 games in a season where the Giants would go 4-12 under Pat Schumer in his second season there. Even though the team wasn't doing that well, Saquon was still doing his thing. He rushed for 1,003 yards and 217 carries, becoming the first New York Giants player ever to rush for 1,000 yards in his first 2 seasons there. He ran for 6 touchdowns. He also had 438 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns of his own to give him 1,441 yards from scrimmage and 8 total touchdowns on the season. He was not named a Pro Bowler, but of course, in the games that he played, he put up a good amount of production, where he put up 1,400 yards in 13 games, which is over 100 yards per game. I'm doing the math here. So that was how dominant Saquon Barkley was, and this would transition into this most recent season, his age 23 season for the Giants. And in this season, he would only put up 34 yards on 19 carries. He only played 2 games. He ended up tearing his ACL. He had 60 yards through the air, so he had 94 yards from scrimmage. So not much you can really kind of get from the season, but from the only full season he had in the league, where he led the entire league in yards per scrimmage despite playing on the New York Giants. That should say enough for itself as to how elite Saquon Barkley is. He's only getting better, and as of today, he just turned 24. So going into 2021, I think it's a no-brainer that when Saquon Barkley is fully healthy, he is a player that should thoroughly be examined and definitely be watched. Because if you enjoy watching the best football played by the best players, then you will enjoy watching Saquon Barkley play. It's truly art in motion. But I want to thank everyone for listening to all 8.5 minutes of this piece. Saquon Barkley is only 24 years old, so I imagine as he continues to put up amazing numbers and put out amazing seasons, I imagine his resume is going to continue to grow on a year-to-year basis, and I'm hoping that it happens. And with that said, I hope all is well. I want to thank everyone for listening to this piece. Today is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. Happy 24th birthday to Saquon Barkley, if you ever catch him, he's wearing number 26 for the New York Giants. And hopefully if they get an offense soon, he's going to be a player that you guys are never going to stop hearing about. With that said, thanks for listening to my piece. It is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. And I'm James Sims, and this is The Elite. Peace out.